You're tired, again. Even after sleeping, even after resting, even after doing absolutely nothing all weekend. There's no logical reason for it, but it's there. That quiet, familiar fatigue, like background music you forgot was playing. And no, coffee won't fix it. Neither will 8 hours of sleep, yoga, or a perfectly optimized morning routine. Because this tiredness isn't in your body, it's in your soul. But no one talks about soul tired, we just keep going. Meetings, deadlines, notifications. We call it being productive, as if burning out slowly is some kind of modern virtue. But what if this constant exhaustion isn't a flaw in you, but a feature of the life you've been taught to live? Maybe you're not lazy. Maybe you're just spiritually starving. The myth of physical tiredness. Let's start with something simple, a lie. A small, quiet lie we've all agreed to tell, that being tired is just about sleep. You've said it before, haven't you? I just need to rest. Or, I'll be fine after the weekend. Or my personal favorite, I'll sleep when I'm dead. Charming, motivational, and completely insane. Because you've slept, you've rested. Maybe you've even done nothing for 2 days straight, only to wake up Monday morning feeling like you just got run over by your own life. We've medicalized exhaustion, tracked it, optimized it, biohacked it. We've turned the simple experience of being tired into something to solve, like a coding error in your body's software. You download sleep, recharge energy. You should be fine, right? So why aren't you? You're not tired because you're sleep deprived. You're tired because you're disconnected from yourself, from meaning, from anything that doesn't feel like another checkbox. This isn't physical fatigue, it's soul-deep weariness. The kind Carl Jung gestured at when he said people would do anything, just to avoid facing their own soul. Including calling their spiritual collapse a scheduling issue. It's safer to say you're tired. People nod when you say that. They understand. They're tired too. But try saying you feel empty. Try saying you don't remember what it feels like to care deeply about something. Try admitting that nothing moves you anymore, that the world feels muted, like you're watching it through a window, and you've forgotten which side you're on. That's when the room goes quiet, because no one knows what to do with that. So you say you're tired. It's a polite word for something heavier, a way to make despair sound manageable, socially acceptable, but sleep won't fix what meaninglessness creates. You could sleep for 100 years and still wake up exhausted if what you're waking up to doesn't speak to you. If your life is just a long list of obligations, none of which reflect who you are, what you believe, or what you love. And yet, you've adapted. That's the scariest part. This fog, this heaviness, it's become background noise. You've lived with it so long you think it's just the weather. Like everyone else, you've learned to call surviving functioning. You measure yourself by productivity, not presence. You track hours slept, steps walked, water drunk, but not once do you ask, when was the last time I felt something real? And that's where the real exhaustion begins. Not from the doing, but from the pretending, from the performance, from dragging your soul through another day that feels like the last one. Not because you're lazy, but because deep down you know, none of this is for you. Your soul, yes, I'm using that word unironically, is not tired because you've been working too hard. It's tired because you've been busy with all the wrong things. Tasks that don't matter, roles that don't fit, goals that don't feed you. You're not overwhelmed because life is too much. You're overwhelmed because it's not enough. Not in the ways that count. But you keep going, because that's what we do. We mistake coping for resilience. We call burnout ambition. We worship busyness. And all the while, something ancient inside you is whispering, this isn't it. But you've gotten so good at silencing that voice, it now speaks through your body, through fatigue, through a constant ache in your chest, through that unshakable feeling that you're always on the edge of tears, but can't remember why. And yet still, you call it tiredness, as if a nap will cure a slow death of the soul. You are not a machine. You don't need to be optimized. You need to feel something that reminds you you're alive, something beautiful, something painful, something real. But the modern world doesn't offer much of that. It offers convenience, comfort, content, but not meaning, not magic, not mystery. So your body shuts down in protest, your mind fogs, your spirit sinks. Not because you're broken, but because the life you've built has no room for you in it. And deep down you know it. That's why you're tired. the quiet violence of normal life. They tell you this is just life, that this is what it means to be an adult, to feel tired, disconnected, half there, to count the hours until the weekend, to survive the days by numbing out the hours. They call it stability, responsibility, normalcy. But if this is normal, then maybe normal is the real illness. Because if you step back, even just for a moment, you start to see it. How much of modern life is structured not around joy or meaning or aliveness, but around compliance, around repetition. Wake up, dress up, show up, smile, perform, consume, sleep, repeat. Not because any of it feeds you, but because you're supposed to. And it's so subtle. No one forces you. There are no chains, no guns, just expectations, just patterns, just gentle, endless repetition. And somewhere in all of that, the self begins to dissolve. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but slowly, quietly. Like a page left out in the sun, fading, fading, fading until the ink is gone and you don't remember what was written there in the first place. This isn't just tiredness, it's erosion. The erosion of curiosity, of spontaneity, of feeling. The kind of tired that comes not from effort but from indifference. The kind of fatigue that seeps into the bones when every day feels like a slightly more faded copy of the last. Not a life, but a loop. And the strange part? We call it success. We congratulate each other on surviving it. You get a job, a raise, a house. You smile in pictures and tell everyone you're doing well. But deep inside, something doesn't add up. You've checked all the boxes, but you still feel empty. You did everything right, but it still feels wrong. And you begin to wonder, is this really what I was meant for? Or have I just become very good at playing a game I never wanted to join? Nietzsche warned us. He said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." But most of us are drowning in the how. How to be efficient, how to succeed, how to fit in, how to stay busy. And the why? It got lost somewhere between the emails and the errands. You don't remember when it started. Maybe it was school, when you were taught to obey instead of wonder. Maybe it was your first job, when your creativity was translated into productivity charts. Or maybe it happened so slowly, you never even noticed. All you know now is that you wake up, live a life that feels nothing like yours, and go to sleep more tired than when you began. And that tiredness, it's not laziness, it's grief. Grief for the parts of you that had to be buried to become functional. Grief for the self that never got to grow because there was never time. Grief for the moments you didn't notice, the joy you didn't feel, the life that slipped by while you were too busy surviving it. But again, we don't say that out loud. It's too heavy, too dramatic, too real. So we go back to the script. Just tired, just stressed, just need a break. We whisper these things while walking toward jobs we hate, relationships we settled for, identities we wear like borrowed clothes. And we wonder, quietly, always quietly, why it never feels like enough. Maybe that's the real violence of normal life. Not that it hurts us, but that it numbs us. It doesn't break us in half. It wears us down one unremarkable day at a time. No alarms, no blood, just slow, steady forgetting. Forgetting how to be alive, how to be wild, how to feel things so deeply that they leave a mark. Forgetting what it's like to wake up and actually want to. Not out of duty, but out of wonder. And the longer you stay in it, the more you forget that anything else is possible. You stop dreaming, you stop reaching, you stop resisting. You call it growing up, you call it realism. But really, it's resignation. And that, more than anything, is why you're tired. Because deep down, something inside you is still awake, still watching, still waiting for you to remember who you were before the world told you who to be. That quiet part of you that still aches for more than just comfort. That still longs for a life that feels real. That still believes rest isn't just about sleep, it's about returning to something true. And until you do, no amount of sleep will ever be enough. The noise that never stops. It's not just the emptiness that exhausts you. It's the noise. The never-ending, always-on, algorithm-curated symphony of distraction that fills every silence before you even realize it's there. You wake up and reach for your phone before your feet touch the ground. Notifications, news, messages, content. You scroll through 100 lives before even remembering your own. And it never really stops, does it? Even your rest is noisy. You relax by watching other people live their lives. Better, faster, more beautifully. You take breaks by consuming more stimulation. TikToks, podcasts, background YouTube videos about productivity while you cook dinner you barely taste. The irony of listening to a self-help reel while dissociating into your third hour of screen time isn't lost on you, but it continues anyway. And you wonder why you feel tired. You don't rest, you escape. You don't slow down. You switch tabs. You don't reflect. You refresh. You don't sit in silence. You drown it. But here's the thing. Rest isn't the absence of doing. It's the presence of stillness. And stillness is terrifying when you've forgotten how to be alone with yourself. Because in that silence, things start to speak. The buried questions, the quiet grief, the strange sense that the life you've built isn't yours, the ache for meaning you've been dodging with noise. And so you run from it. With dopamine, with distraction, with anything that keeps the silence out long enough for you to collapse into unconsciousness at night and call it sleep. But your nervous system knows, your soul knows. It never really gets the chance to exhale. You live in constant stimulation, constant comparison, constant reaction, no time to process, no space to feel, just input, 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 and no integration. Carl Jung said that people don't become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. But darkness can't be felt through a screen, and the consciousness you need doesn't come from content. It comes from contact with yourself, with what hurts, with what's real. But that kind of rest is radical, inconvenient, non-monetizable. So you keep scrolling, and the stimulation doesn't energize you, it fragments you. Your attention becomes so split, so diluted, that even when you stop, your mind doesn't. It races, it replays, it recycles old thoughts in new packaging, and you call that anxiety. But maybe it's just what happens when your inner world is never allowed to catch up. You were never meant to consume this much, not information, not other people's lives, not curated narratives designed to keep you looking outward. You were meant to sit sometimes, to stare out a window, to feel boredom long enough for something deeper to surface. But boredom now feels like failure, like lost time, like a threat. And so the noise stays, your headphones stay in. The music plays while you walk, while you clean, while you shower, while you try to sleep. And in between, voices fill the void. Experts, influencers, motivators, everyone with something to say, except you. Because when would you even hear yourself think? You mistake activity for aliveness, but deep down you know they're not the same. You're moving, but not going anywhere. Achieving, but not arriving. Connected, but not seen. Stimulated, but not satisfied. And all of this, every little ping, buzz, reel, scroll, it comes at a cost. Not just to your focus, but to your rest. Because true rest requires presence. And presence requires quiet, and quiet requires courage. So no, you're not just tired because you work too hard. You're tired because you've been avoiding yourself for too long. And the noise, as loud as it is, has become a lullaby, a way to stay asleep with your eyes open. But there's something inside you, something silent, that's still waiting to be heard. And maybe that's why you feel so tired, because your soul is whispering through all the noise, and you're finally starting to hear it. The identity you forgot you're performing. You wake up every day and step into a character. You might call it yourself, but really, it's a role. A carefully rehearsed, socially approved, quietly exhausted version of you. The one that smiles on cue, nods during meetings, answers "I'm fine" when no part of you is. The version that functions well enough to be left alone, and it works. You've gotten good at it. So good, in fact, that you've forgotten where the performance ends and the person begins. You've forgotten that you weren't born to be liked, you were born to be real. But somewhere along the way, being real started to feel risky, messy, inconvenient. So you learned to adapt, to shrink, to say what's expected and feel what's acceptable. You became the peacekeeper, the achiever, the strong one, the funny one, the dependable one. Pick a label, they're all masks. And after wearing them for so long, they don't even feel like masks anymore. They just feel like you. But underneath the roles, there's something else, something softer, something wilder, something tired. Not tired from effort, but from absence, from not being seen, not being heard, not even by others, just by yourself. Because when you spend years performing an identity, your nervous system forgets what authenticity feels like. Every social interaction becomes a low-grade act, every workplace a theater, every conversation a script. You measure your words, you adjust your tone, You keep yourself within the boundaries of what's appropriate, normal, pleasant. You are exhausted, and no one even knows. Because on the outside, you look fine, but behind the scenes, there's a quiet ache. A longing to just be. Not impressive, not agreeable, not productive, just human. You start to notice it when you're alone, in the rare moments without expectation, when the masks fall off by accident, a sudden tear during a commercial, a strange heaviness in the car. That feeling you get after socializing too long, when the smile fades and your face hurts, not because you were sad, but because you weren't yourself. This is the fatigue of fragmentation, of being split between who you are and who you think you need to be, of constantly editing your truth down to something more acceptable. You don't even lie, you just leave things out. You shrink your joy so others don't feel small. You hide your pain so no one feels uncomfortable. You disappear yourself in pieces. And yet, you wonder why you're tired. Carl Jung once warned that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But no one told you that becoming yourself would mean disappointing people, that it would mean being misunderstood, that it would mean losing the comfort of belonging in exchange for the risk of being honest. So instead, you compromise. You say yes when you mean no. You laugh at jokes that don't land. You pretend you're okay because explaining why you're not feels like too much work. And slowly, gently, your real self starts to dim. Not out of shame, but out of exhaustion. Because performing is exhausting. Because constantly managing perception is a job you didn't apply for but can't seem to quit. Because being who you are, underneath it all, feels so far away now that you're not even sure where to begin. But there's something strange about pretending for too long. You don't just fool others, you start to fool yourself. You convince yourself that this is what maturity looks like, that adulthood means smiling through the ache. That silence is strength. That fitting in is the same thing as being known, but it's not. And the body remembers, even when you forget. Even when your mind insists you're fine, your body leaks the truth through fatigue, through tension, through tears that show up without warning and have no clear name. This tiredness is the cost of unreality, of walking through life wearing layers that were never yours, of being praised for a version of you that you know deep down is only partially true. And the longer you keep it up, the heavier it becomes. Not because you're weak, but because it's heavy. It's always been heavy. And maybe what you need isn't more motivation. Maybe it's permission to fall apart, to stop performing, to speak badly, cry loudly, laugh weirdly, say no freely, to feel things without apologizing, to be seen in your chaos, not despite it, but through it. Because you weren't born to be a character. You were born to be a presence. And until you return to that presence, you will always feel tired. The hunger for meaning. There's a kind of tiredness that doesn't come from what you do, but from what you don't do. From what you don't even dare to want anymore. That low hum of fatigue, the one that doesn't leave even after 8 hours of sleep or 3 weeks of vacation. It's not about rest, it's about meaning, or rather, the absence of it. You can go days, months, years living a life that checks every box and still feel like something vital is missing. You can follow all the rules, climb all the ladders, earn the praise, the money, the moments of applause, and yet, there it is, that strange emptiness. Like you're always 5 steps removed from your own existence. Like you're watching yourself live instead of actually living. We don't talk about it much, because meaning isn't measurable. It doesn't look good on a resume. You can't post it, you can't buy it. It won't make your LinkedIn page more impressive or your weekend Instagram worthy. But without it, everything else feels like dust. Just motion, just noise, just a beautifully polished version of being lost. We've mistaken movement for purpose, goals for guidance, accomplishment for arrival. And so we chase more work, more money, more recognition, more improvement. We say things like, I just need to find my purpose, as if it's hidden somewhere out there, waiting to be unlocked like a bonus level in a video game. But purpose isn't found, it's felt, it's made, it's lived, in small ways, quiet ways, in the things that make you forget to check your phone, in the conversations where you lose track of time, in the moments that feel unnecessary but somehow essential. Nietzsche said that when we lack meaning, we make up with it in intensity. That's why we crave drama, stimulation, chaos, because silence is unbearable when it's empty. So we fill it with arguments, with ambition, with distractions that make us feel alive without ever making us whole. But none of it satisfies. Not really, because the hunger is spiritual, existential. And you can't feed a starving soul with achievements. You can't fill the void with applause. You can't calm the ache with likes, with milestones, with more of the same things that exhausted you in the first place. And yet, you keep going. Because that's what you've been taught. That meaning will come later. After the degree, after the promotion, after the house, the spouse, the perfectly balanced lifestyle. You're always one step away from finally feeling like it all makes sense. But that step keeps moving. The finish line keeps running. And you don't even notice how long you've been chasing shadows until you finally stop and feel the weight of it all crash down in silence. That silence, by the way, is not your enemy. It's the beginning of listening, of remembering, of returning to yourself. Because the things that truly give you energy, the things that make you feel less tired, less numb, less like you're faking your way through life, aren't always efficient. They aren't always logical. Sometimes they're completely impractical. Reading poetry alone in a cafe, talking with someone for hours about something that doesn't matter but somehow matters more than anything. Making something beautiful just because. Crying, laughing without knowing why. Being human without optimizing it. You don't need a bigger purpose. You need a closer one. Something honest, something messy, something real enough that it doesn't need to be explained or defended. Something that makes you feel like yourself. Not the version you perform, not the one people expect, but the version you've always secretly missed. The tiredness you feel, it's not failure, it's feedback. It's your soul trying to get your attention. It's the quiet protest of a life lived too far from what matters. So maybe it's not that you need more energy. Maybe it's that you need more meaning. And until you give yourself permission to want that, to hunger for it, to reach for it, even if you don't know where it leads, you'll keep waking up with that same dull ache in your chest. The one that whispers, "I don't want to do this anymore," even when you don't know what this is. But that whisper is a beginning, if you dare to follow it. Maybe the worst kind of tired isn't when your body gives out. It's when your soul quietly folds its arms, sits down inside you and says, "I'll wait." Waits for you to stop running long enough to notice you've gone nowhere. Waits for you to stop pretending that numbness is normal. Waits for you to ask yourself honestly, without performance, is this how I want to live? There's no quick fix. No 5-step plan to becoming magically energized. The kind of tired we've been talking about, it doesn't disappear overnight. It unravels slowly as you begin to remember what it means to feel like yourself again. Not the self that meets expectations, the self that breathes a little easier when no one is watching. Maybe all you need right now is permission to stop, to rest. Not just your body, but your pretending. To get quiet enough to hear something true beneath the noise. Maybe that's what real rest looks like. Not escape, but return. So if you feel tired, even after rest, don't rush to fix it. Don't force yourself to be okay. Just start by listening. Because underneath the exhaustion, underneath the scrolling, the smiling, the surviving, something is still alive in you. Something wild, something waiting, something worth waking up for. And that might be the most hopeful thing of all.